Hi and welcome everybody back to another love transformation class. And I'm really excited to dive into this topic today. We've all heard of the concept of the masculine and feminine balance and how important it is in dating. So today's expert is going to dive really deep on this whole concept. It's not just about acting in a feminine way and attracting men and all of that kind of strategy. We're really going to understand what this means to embody the feminine and why that's so important in terms of creating beautiful, loving partnerships. Welcome, Helena.
Hi, thank you so much. Yes, this is such an important topic, and there's a lot of misconceptions out there about feminine energy and how to use it in a way that's really going to work for you in all areas of your life. So I'm so excited to dive in today.
Awesome. And one of the things that I wanted to sort of touch on first of all is, we sort of understand what masculine and feminine is, but why do you think we have this issue today of it being so important, in that where we're tending to skew in this 21st century is for women being accused of being overly masculine, and that's a problem for them, creating connection, lasting connections in the relationship. Why do you think there tends to be a trend for that to happen?
That's a great question. I think there's a lot of different reasons for this. You know, most women today are working, they have full-time jobs or their own businesses, and, you know, they also may be raising kids. And in order to do that effectively, you have to be in your masculine energy a lot. And by the way, your masculine energy is a fantastic thing. You know, common misconception is when people hear me talk about shifting into your feminine, they think, you know, that means like squashing their masculine energy down. And that really couldn't be further from the truth. I really like to think of this as like ramping up both your masculine and your feminine energy, just using them in a way that's going to work for you. So if you're working full time, if you have kids that you have to attend to, and just, you know, things to do in your life, your masculine energy is going to be employed, is a good word for it. And again, that's a great thing. And to answer your question, it can be so easy to get stuck in that place. So then when we come home and we're with our man, or if you're single and going out on dates and meeting new men, it can be a challenge to kind of shift out of that doing and thinking and analyzing and planning energy and shift into your feminine energy, which is the receiving, being in the moment, trusting and allowing and responding energy.
Beautiful. And we're going to dive a little bit more into why that's so important in terms of a romantic connection and a lasting sort of dynamic in a relationship. But let's first of all, I guess, touch on all the ways that masculine energy shows up when we're in the presence of a man.
Yeah, great question. So, everyone watching can just imagine themselves with a man right now. It could be your man, or, you know, a man you're really attracted to, or just a brand new man, right? Someone you're about to meet. And immediately just, you know, what do we tend to do? Normally we go right up into our heads. We wonder what he's thinking about us, or what would be the perfect thing to say next. Or we might be fast forwarding, thinking like, would my friends and family like him? Do we want the same things? Are we on the same page? All of these things throw us right up into our head, into our masculine energy. And again, not a bad thing in, you know, other areas of your life, but when you're wanting to create that deep attraction and connection with a man, you really want to be in your body and in touch with your heart and your emotions, that juicy feminine energy that's going to draw him into you and actually create that connection. Something I always say is the way to connect to a man's heart is always through your own heart first. It is just the only way. If you're up in your head trying to like mentally create some kind of connection, you know, a guy might like you, he might find you attractive, he might feel like you're connecting on like a friendship level, but that actually does nothing for romance. So if you want to connect to his heart, you have to connect with your own heart and your own feminine energy first.
Yeah. And what sort of behaviors do you see when a woman is in her masculine? What are some of the ways in which, let's perhaps start with some of the obvious ways, and then maybe we can move on to some of the less obvious ways being in our masculine causes behaviors perhaps that aren't necessarily attractive to a man?
Oh yeah, I mean, so the most obvious you can think of, masculine energy is leaning forward. So anytime you're leaning forward physically, or even mentally and emotionally by constantly thinking about a man, even when he's not right in front of you, obsessing about him, replaying the last conversation, or beating yourself up because he's pulling away right now, anything that looks like leaning forward. A lot of women think they're not leaning forward because they're not maybe initiating contact and driving to him and paying for everything. Those are all masculine energy traits, right? They have that forward leaning, pushing outward quality, right? But they actually are, because mentally they're leaning forward, right? They could physically be leaning back, but if you're up in your head analyzing where you stand with a man, or where's this relationship going, all of those things, you're actually, pushing that energy out mentally. So, anything that looks like that or feels like that is actually in your masculine energy.
One of the things I noticed that women often tend to do is this kind of overgiving. If I cook for him, if I run errands for him, if I'm super nice for him, and we might think that those types of things are feminine energy things, but they're actually masculine energy and kind of controlling, right? Can you explain how would we tell the difference?
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Again, very common misconception, because a lot of people think giving and nurturing are feminine energy traits, and I actually disagree with that. The way I was trained, as you know, they're a very masculine energy. If you're hoping for some kind of result or outcome, or you're just constantly giving and doing, there's a lot of like forward leaning energy in some of those things, right? Over functioning is one of the top problems I see. And that looks like, some of the things you mentioned, always being the one to initiate contact with a man, always being the one to drive to him, to pay for everything, to, keep things moving forward. I know it can be difficult to get out of this, because a lot of women think, okay, if I stop doing all of these things, the relationship's just going to fizzle, or he's going to think I'm not interested, or he's going to lose interest. And so we do all these things to kind of make it easy for a man, right? And all of those things actually just push him away on a very deep subconscious level.
Yeah, and I want to actually chat about and to share with our audience as well about, I guess, the underlying psychology behind why do we have this tendency to want to think, if I try really hard, he'll be more impressed with me and he'll reciprocate those feelings. Like, where does that come from? Why do we end up doing that and not even realize, do you think?
You know what? That's a great question. First thing that comes to mind is, I think so many of us these days we've kind of been brought up placing our worth and our value on what we can do and accomplish and give to others, right? So the idea of a man showing up and just loving us for who we are, not because of what we do or give to him, is a pretty foreign concept to so many of us women, right? So the idea of just receiving from a man, it's like a lot of us didn't even have like a framework for that in our brain. So, I mean, the good news is, once you create it and experience what that feels like and how much easier everything can flow when you're in that leaned back feminine place, you can then start to make some shifts.
Yeah, beautiful. And we're going to actually go into quite a bit of detail a bit later on in our chat about how we can shift this around. But I just sort of wanted to recap what you said there, because I think that's important for us to sort of have an understanding of the fact that we've grown up being rewarded and being validated, and even developing a lot of our sense of self-worth, right, around being a giver and being a good girl and pleasing perhaps our parents and other people. And so would you say that's sort of like a pattern perhaps that we've developed, in childhood, or perhaps even noticed our parents with that kind of dynamic?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how many women I hear from who that's all they know, because they grew up watching like their mothers or, other family members or friends doing that. And that's like the only model they have. And you said something else that was great. Yeah. we were brought up thinking like, well, you're supposed to be a good person and giving and unselfish person. And I just wanted to make a distinction. Yeah, this isn't about being selfish and just taking everything a man has to offer and not giving anything in return. You know, giving back to a man is fantastic. You know, giving back from that place where like your cup's overflowing because, you know, he is giving you so much energy and attention or love and affection, whatever it is that's happening here. Giving back is great. It's just when we're leaning forward and we're giving something because we feel empty, we're feeling lack in the relationship, or we're starting to feel anxious and insecure, and we lean forward and we start over functioning and over giving, hoping that the guy is going to give you something back in terms of his time or affection or even commitment. That's when we can get into trouble. I call that giving to get. And it just feels like pressure to a man. All of these things, even if we're doing it with a big smile on our face and we think we're being really nice and understanding, a man can feel that if we have this agenda and it just feels like, you know, he just wants, it repels him. It'll make him want to back off and create some space because it's just this feeling of like, ooh, she wants something from me that I'm not just freely giving her on my own right now, right?
Yeah, it's actually really counterintuitive because I don't think we give men the credit that they deserve for being able to really sort of see beneath what our ultimate intentions are behind that behavior, right?
Yeah, oh gosh, yeah. We tend to think men are clueless, but they're actually not. They're very sensitive to this vibe we're giving off. So if you're trying to be cool and understanding and collected and all of those things, but deep down you're feeling really anxious or you're trying to make something happen constantly with him, he can feel that. Absolutely. A man can pick that up a mile away, right?
Can you give us like a few little examples of perhaps some of the, excuse me, some of the subtle ways in which our masculine energy can creep in our everyday, I guess, sort of dating life?
Yeah, great question. Something I always, if we're going like more subtle, the more subtle ways, I always have my clients ask themselves before they do anything, if they're questioning, a lot of questions I get are like, should I reach out to him? Should I give him this gift? Should I cook him dinner? You can always ask yourself, what am I hoping will happen? Everyone can write that down. What am I hoping will happen? And if you can answer that strongly, like, well, I hope he'll see what a great woman I am and how wonderful we'd be together, right? Or I'm hoping he'll, see that I would be the perfect girlfriend and he'll commit to me. Or I'm hoping he'll want to spend more time with me and ask me out for next weekend. If you have some kind of really strong agenda like that, you know that you might be at this place where you're giving to get, and he's going to be able to feel that. You know, on the other hand, if you ask yourself this question, what am I hoping will happen? And the answer is nothing. I just, I was cooking dinner. I had some extra, he was on his way home. It would feel good to see him. And there's no real strong attachment to the outcome or the result. Then you're good. You can really do anything when you're coming from this super confident feeling place. Most women, I'll tell you, are not at that place if they're coming to me for advice because the man's pulling away or something like that.